It is time for our final match of the day here in NECC Overwatch Nationals. My name is Jeff. I'm here with LaFawn to guide you through this series. We're headed to the Navigators Division, and it's time for the semifinals. We're down to the final handful of teams, and this best of seven will determine who will move on to the Grands.
In fact, there are 4 teams left, and we had turn our attention to the 2 that are at hand as a result. But as we get set underway, we got to talk about the 2 squads and what they have in front of them, and what we really can expect from these 2 teams. As WCU Slate takes on Huntington University here in our semifinal match, as you said, in the Navigator Division. A bit of a mismatch, I think, in terms of score lines coming in from the regular season performance, right, Jeff? But overall, certainly good to be an exciting one as we get set to go into it in a moment.
I mean, Huntington, this is their first semester. Spring was the first time we saw them here in NECC, and they have been absolutely flawless. They went 9-0 through the regular season. They got first place in the spring playoffs that we just had a few weeks back. They seem unstoppable and have made quite an impact here in their debut in NECC. On the other side, WCU Slate, it's been a fight. It's been a bit of a road for them to get here. Started off 2-5 in fall of last year, but man, what a turnaround! They're able to play second in those playoffs, get runner-up once again in the spring playoffs, and now find themselves in the semifinals of nationals.
And I think at this point in time, right, we talk about playoffs and how that performance can kind of attune to it, right? From our point of view, that storyline of the 9-0 versus the 5-4 scoreline is tremendous. But I think once you get into the game itself, these players aren't thinking about that at all. It's it's game day, right? What can you do to make that performance a little bit better? Time after time, iterate on it. And a lot of times we see those upsets come through. So I wouldn't be surprised to kind of highlight that in this next match. And a big mark of that, of course, is the play style in game, right? Overwatch 1 has come to sort of its tail end of its performance. And so as a result, we really do know how games tend to play out. And as a result, I think, we're talking about ultimates a lot of the time here.
Yes, sir. And funny you mentioned that because I did have a chance to talk with the director there at WCU, Mountain, and was talking about how their ult usage is the most important factor. Thinks that is going to be the key to victory here is how smart they are with their ultimates and getting max value out of it, which of course requires a lot of discipline and communication going in. So definitely something we're going to be keeping our eye on as this series unfolds.
Yeah, and I'm looking to see how much under pressure this WCU squad can kind of handle themselves, because they are a very young squad, right? We talked about, of course, coming into this for their first time. But as we get set to go into the game in a moment, we got to talk about map number 1 as we got to look at the rosters directly ahead of us, getting on that train early. And we've kind of already highlighted what we kind of expect the game to kind of rotate around. But I think in Overwatch 1, another thing we have to highlight is tank line's still very, very dominant.
And set the pace, really dictate the tempo for the team, for both of our teams, but the team that can do it the best, the team that can really control the flow of battle has such a huge advantage, and then you're forced to react to them. And that's we're seeing T-Brain and Trash Boat will be taking up that mantle there for Huntington as we move on over to WCU Slate. Your takes for this one are going to be MWM and Spongy Boy. And MWM is kind of the pseudo IGL. They don't really have a single in-game leader, but MGM apparently makes a lot of the good calls, and playing in this tank world, that doesn't surprise me. It gives you the ability to kind of call out that tempo that you want to take, and whether you need to push in, pull back, what the flow of battle should look like there.
Yeah, absolutely, right? That's something we're going to definitely get a call on once we get into map itself. And of course, talking about map, we have to talk about what our maps are, the rotation that we got through here in the series of a first 4 in this best of 7 in this semi-final matchup. We're starting off in control as we always do, and a little bit of a different variation here in the playoffs, Jeff, because as we say, it's a ban first pick by the higher seed. So map number 1 is going to be Lijiang Tower, as Busan was taken off the table.
Yeah, no more fixed maps like we saw in the regular season. We're returning to a loser pick format here. The bans play a very interesting part in that as well. So it's not just a pure loser pick, but the winner gets an opportunity to eliminate a map that they don't want to play from the pool entirely. In this case, Busan has been eliminated, so we will not see Busan throughout the entirety of this best of 7 series. We will also not see any assault. It is control, escort, and hybrid only through this first of 4.
And you won't count me too often amongst the those crying about the assault map not being heralded here, and I'm sure all of you watching at home feel the same way. But that being said, the game itself will be underway in just a moment. The explosive action of Control is really one to highlight here. And I mean, Lijiang Tower, no stranger to rush. I wouldn't be surprised at all if on at least two of this, the sub maps, we end up seeing that Reinhardt composition. And hey, lo and behold, already out the gate, both teams hovering over that rush-based comp.
Oh, and both teams want to stick with the Symmetra. That I anticipate we'll see a Symmetra teleporter through the window here on Night Market, which is going to put these two Reinhardts face to face, hammer to hammer, immediately right out of the gate. Could be a slugfest to start things off. Big difference is going to be Boo on the Mei versus Prozac on the Cassidy.
The other thing to highlight is MW1 on the Roadhog as well. So damage mitigation not in hand for WCU Slate, but they will have a lot of damage throughput. Speaking of, they're in through the window, as you said, and the damage is raining through already.
And the wall from WCU not able to section anybody off, so the Cassidy gets the upper end of the deal, even gets the better end of the duel against the Mei. And it is a full steamroll forward here for Huntington Esports. And just first fight, we can see how they've been so dominant throughout the spring semester.
And it's a tale of two Reinhardts in this situation for sure. Spongy Boy only 29%. Peep and Trash Boat, the opposition in tow. Almost up to the Earth Shatter already off that first fight, Jeff. And all of a sudden, we're looking at that being another fight win for Huntington if Trash Boat can play that opportunity to perfection.
Gonna be another teleport engage while WCU sticking with the Symmetra, dropping on down. Immortality Field temporarily keeping Trash Boat alive. Has the Shatter, but doesn't have much health. Has to back up. Never get a chance to use the ultimate. And this is quite the comeback here from WCU Slate as Western Colorado University storm back in with a vengeance.
I mean, speaking of vengeance, also, that's an equalization of all charge from Spongy Boy as well. Called out at the top of the fight, returns in a grand order as the now it's gonna be the Shatter versus Shatter here in this next engagement. I mean, WCU Slate put themselves in opportunity for this next engagement, Jeff. And I mean, the eye's really gonna come down to this Symmetra. If the wall comes up, that's gonna be a lot of damage mitigation through, but that's a big if here as the fight starts to commence.
And it doesn't look like Huntington are going to go through the window again. Perhaps try to drop a teleporter into the back. Yeah, that's what we're looking like here. We're going to tell. No, they destroy it. Oh, I know Trash Boat was looking for that teleport Shatter, but WCU Slate are all over it. Read that play right out of the book. And Huntington Esports kind of just reeling a little bit, looking indecisive on how they want to approach this since Plan A went into the toilet.
Well, there's going to be the Symmetra wall as the Photon Barrier is extended, but I mean, Huntington aren't really taking a lot of space with it, and they need it now.
Shields cracking, Trash Boats down. Could be a free Shatter for Spongy Boy. It's going to be a sound barrier out preemptively from Doxic, and Spongy Boy dies before they can unleash it. It's going to be the DPS ults from WCU Slate here to close this thing out. It was a huge blizzard indeed, and who needs a Reinhardt on the battlefield when you've got a blizzard like that?
That's a really clean fight from WCU Slate. I mean, a lot of you might consider that to be an expensive engagement from the DPS, but I mean, Huntington respond in kind, and so ultimately it's a big trade that's going to put them in that last fight territory, and still eyes on that Shatter, still in tow as Spongy Boy has the defensive advantage.
Celebrating through the window this time, drop it down and immediately throwing down the hammer. Does not find anything. Whole Hog coming out, and Spongy Boy going in swinging as a nice Maywall has separated Huntington Esports. And Matrix off the outside, but the Whole Hog just pushes everybody right off the edge. It was the old bait and switch. You thought you had your safe position there with your double damage. Nah, you were easy pickings for MWM, and this is going to be WCU Slate picking up Night Market.
Amusing little anecdote of that round, though, is that the Shatters were the first ultimates brought into the game, and neither of them were even used until the last fight. Another of them.
I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, it's the first round of a playoffs, right? You got to warm up a little bit. And the Reinhardts, there's nothing more threatening than knowing an Earth Shatter's available and just like not being able to really do anything with it. So it's the mental game as a whole part of it, right? At least
huge part of it. A huge part of it.
That's at least what I'm guessing the players are saying to each other.
As a Reinhardt player myself, I can attest to that. The mental game is a massive part of it, and when you know that opponent has Shatter, it changes what you do. It changes how aggressive you want to play. You have to just completely mark the other Reinhardt, and so okay, we'll call it part of the psychological warfare. And heading into Control Center here, I don't expect any changes from our compositions.
Not at all. I think WCU Slate not being punished for that Roadhog pick is going to bolster them quite a bit. You can see MWM already out there. That being said, Immortality Field committed, and the first death already to WCU Slate.
Oh, as Ginger comes up with 2 early picks. The Immortality Field was not only very early, but it was kind of far behind the team and did not get the value Slate was wanting.
That is going to be a clean fight win for Huntington. I think that's actually the first neutral fight that they've won in a straight 6v6, right? It was that opening fight for the first round that they also took, but that was off the back of a teleporter that kind of fell down. Here now the re-engage comes in from WCU. Another really early Immortality Field from both teams, in fact.
And that's such a huge resource, particularly when Spongy Boy is so low, has to just hide. Ginger is able to work that angle with the Symmetra beam and burn him down, opens things up for Huntington Esports to just bull forward like a train and mow over anything in their way.
That is actually one downside to this Roadhog composition. There's a lot of explosive power, but walking around the corner, you take so much spam coming in that you're almost forced to use the Immortality Field first just to get in position, try and hit that, that head-to-head spam battle. But, I mean, that means that you're not available in the later stage of the fight to stay alive longer, and Huntington has made that tremendously valuable to themselves. I mean, that's 5 ultimates coming up in this next fight. WCU Slate really, the cupboard is empty.
And they're just going to charge onto the point and hope for the best. It's going to be a photon barrier to kind of cut them in half at the moment. Ant Matrix up as well, and Ginger continues to just microwave everything in their path. And Huntington Esports... after a little bit shaky start on Night Market, have looked incredibly dominant so far through Control Center.
I will say that was a lot of ultimates there that weren't really responded to. Disagrees going to switch over to the Sombra here, but Huntington, not really a lot of tools left to their side, as we are going to head to that last fight territory, but down a player, and again, no resources in the bank.
Not just down a player, but down their Lucio, down their speed, and their sound barrier that WCU are going to pop. Granted, it's a little early. That was a risky blizzard, but T-Brain doesn't read it. It ends up getting frozen. Immortality Field, you're going to keep him in mech for the moment, so WCU Slate trying to focus their attention elsewhere. Spongy Boy falls. Sound barrier now returns from Doxic as the shatter thrown down by Trash Boat. And Huntington Esports managed to survive the initial attack with the ultimates and come back blazing. MWN found 1. Boo is going to stall here for a little bit, try to get some reinforcements back on this point. Spongy Boy might be able to touch. Does. Throws down the hammer. That finds a few, but there's just not enough people left for WCU Slate to do anything with it.
And that is going to give us a 3rd round here, Jeff, as they get the cleanup in time. Huntington, 100-0, as you highlighted a moment ago. A big surprise turnaround after what was a more competitive early round on Lijiang Towers. Seriously? We're going to have to ground it. I think the one thing now we have to kind of ask ourselves is what composition we're going to see here on this 3rd phase, because we haven't really seen a lot of variation in style between these 2 squads, and they didn't need to do it. That's not really a critique of the teams, but heading to Garden, I'm going to say that the rush composition is going to be a little less dynamic here, right? You don't have nearly as many pathing opportunities on this 3rd submap, so definitely curious to see the adaptation here. As I mean, initially we're still seeing that rush being hovered on, but again, as I said, you really only have one true path, and that is the one through White Room that's away from the map hazard. So we'll see if they're able to adapt and overcome. There's a teleporter to the point, and we're getting another brawl in that point.
Well, and particularly in this Brawl v Brawl matchup, that means this first fight is incredibly important. Massive advantage to hold on to this objective with the few entry points you have to choose from. Early trades, but it's Spongy Boy fallen that concerns me the most. Huntington Esports gonna have that front line still standing to move through and kind of focus the fire of Huntington Esports, and that fire is Ginger with the Symmetra once again wreaking havoc for WCU Slate. Set of storm arrows from Boo almost got the job done. Follow up on a Prozac is there. MWM gets a kill as well. WCU Slate fall early, but they're not going quietly into the night.
That is actually going to be the hold there, too, as they take the first point. T-Brain going to try and... actually not going to go for the reset. Instead, going to elect to just try and spam with the Bunny Blaster. A really hectic engagement there, just as both teams hover on the point, and, last player left standing agreement is the one that takes the fight there. Unfortunately for WC Slate, it's the Diva without a mech. Now, here's that re-engagement. There's the Ant Matrix, but they walk just by it to WC Slate, and they get the first 2 picks.
Yeah, it's a whole hawk combined with the Dragons to section off Huntington and not allow them to use that amplification matrix. A little bit of clapback coming through, 2 kills favoring Huntington, and Baptiste is gone from WCU Slate, so they need to win this fight out fairly quickly if they're going to get the job done, because they're lacking in sustain at the moment. Do have just 2 players left to deal with on this point.
That being said, Prozac gets one more, and that's going to mean that the rest of the players are able to contest. Again, that teleporter is still up, so walking back to the point is a very quick affair for Huntington Esports, and though this fight's over, they're still getting some percentage.
Oh, the stall of Gardens. It just continues to haunt the nightmares of WCU Slate as enough reinforcements show up to find the kills and punish the team out of Colorado, and Slate are back in spawn.
I mean, that is just a really, really strong recontest there. And I mean, for WCU Slate, they're going to, be ruining the day that they refused to shoot down the teleporter, because that was really the win condition for Huntington. They were down and out in that fight. There was no way they were coming back. And that teleporter brought them all in close affair. Here it is, a return of it, but the boot! No,
no way!
She comes in clutch!
Oh my, Doxic just goes into the window and says, how about half your team makes it to the point, because I'm going to send the other half back to spawn. And this all goes back to that first fight, LaFawn. Huntington won it there, and they've had the edge ever since.
I mean, now we're in that last fight, and WCU Slate, they get shattered. That's 2 tanks down.
Oh man, and the Mountaineers can't even get close to the point. It's going to be the Foresters from Huntington, Indiana, taking map 1. In fantastic fashion. They lose the opening round on Night Market, then bring it back on both Control Center and then on Gardens. They're going to take a 1-0 lead, start things off in the semifinals.
I mean, we gotta POV of that. Oh no, just waiting for it. Oh, the tragedy.
I mean, Doxic, the patience there, like, nope, that's not enough. That's not enough. There it is. Yeah. Now it's time to hit that alt fire, boot them back into the fishies. Oh, what that really kind of encapsulated that whole map, I think. I mean, it's had a good plan. Western Colorado did, and it's just foiled by one little thing. And in that particular instance, well, it was a boot from the Lucio.
Yeah, it really was. I think we're getting into map number 2 in a moment here. I kind of want to focus the attention on the adaptation, from WCU Slate, because clearly in that round that they won, they were in control a lot of the time with the fights, right? They were in that alt economy staying significantly ahead. I mean, we kind of joked about the Reinhardt Earthshatter kind of not needing to be used, but the truth is, if you don't need to force an ultimate, don't, right? At a certain point, spending something just because you have it is not always a good thing. Now, the recovery from Huntington University in the later stages of the map, right, the latter 2 rounds of Lijiang Tower, I think speaks volumes as to the fact that WCU Slate, once the speed of the game kind of got away from them, they weren't able to quite recover in time. And I'm looking for sort of a return to form as we head into map number 2 in a moment.
And I can't help but think of, MWM pulling out the Roadhog, not something you typically see in that brawl composition, and kind of struggled to get value out of it a little bit. So may have been fighting a more difficult battle than they needed to, just based on that off-tank choice alone.
I mean, Roadhog is a really greedy pick, right? It's tough to call Roadhog a tank in this composition. It's really a bruiser, a Widow, style of gameplay. Obviously, the mechanics of it are very different, but the Widow, goes for that single pick, and that kind of snowballs a fight into your favor. Roadhog plays essentially the same way, except much beefier in the health pool department. The truth of it is, it's still the same. Isolate a pick-off with the hook, get the elimination, you kind of snowball a 5v6 from there on out. The problem, again, in this rush composition, because you're playing so close, there's so many damage mitigation factors. That was a non-factor, in fact, in that first map. So MWM going to have to step up in a big way in map number 2, especially if they want to keep running the Roadhog.
You know what I found funny about that is typically you think of the whole hog as perhaps not being the most high impact ultimate, but it's getting the hooks, it's getting those kills in the neutral where you really find the value. It seemed to be completely opposite there, as MWM was struggling to get some of those hook kills in, but a couple of whole hogs were massive, like that really turned the tide for some fight wins for WCU Slate. So it wasn't the ultimate usage that was the problem in that one. It was getting the value in the neutral from the off tank and perhaps missing some utility to help protect the team. Curious to see what happens as things go on. WCU do get our map pick, and they have chosen to go to Havana after we saw Junkertown banned out, coincidentally enough.
Yeah, and I mean, to give some credit over to Huntington Esports. Again, it's not a zero-sum game, right? Just because the Roadhog is not necessarily getting a ton of value does not mean, or rather, it almost always means that the opposition is also providing some level of counterplay to it to make that so much more difficult. And I think in this instance, I actually want to talk about Doxic for a second. We saw that really great play by the Lucio player, with the alt fire, the sound wave off the side. But I think more critically has been the spacing from the Lucio, right? The speed has been there at a proper time. The healing has just been sufficient as well. And I think the sound barriers are being, relatively quick on the uptake. So overall, a lot of this has come down to between the off tank of Huntington esports and the main support, both of them combining to really make MWM's life pretty miserable in terms of those isolation factors, that we kind of talked about at the tail end of map number 1.
Doc's doing a fantastic job with it. And I'm curious if we're going to get more of the Lucio and in turn more of this brawl-like composition as we head in such a wide open map that is Havana. An awesome camera angle here from our observer, Caroline. That's I really appreciate a good camera shot. And we've got a lot of film students here coming in from Huntington University. I'm sure they're all admiring the beautiful camera work, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Huntington starting us off on the defense as they're coming out, and really, not much changes. Prozac going on to the May looks to be the biggest change I'm seeing so far.
I think the biggest surprise here from Huntington is the fact that Doxic's on the Ana, right? We're seeing double.
Ana, yeah.
We use these terms kind of loosely these days, like the term flex support, main support, et cetera, et cetera. But, historically speaking, BAP and Ana are both flex support picks. You don't play them at the same time. So this is certainly a very curious look from Huntington Esports. Not a lot of disengaged potential. That being said, the healing throughput is going to be through the roof. And Huntington, I think, will try and take a couple of brawls with that in mind.
WCU Slate are going to try to use an Orisa Diva to break this open. But hey, there you go. MWM fighting first blood. A huge bio-nade value from the Ana already. Forces out an early immortality field, and they just can't recover from it. Huntington Esports are able to continue to pressure down the DPS after they're not able to receive the healing. And despite losing one, Huntington are going to continue to hold.
Another small play there is that Doxic actually slept beast mode on the Baptiste. So not only was the anti-nade big, and after it sort of faded away, the BAP still couldn't heal. So a lot of work being done by the Ana there.
Doxic double dipping and now almost has a nano boost ready to go. But with Trash Boat going down, may not get a chance to use it in this fight as WCU Slate are able to strike pretty quickly. Do lose Boo along the way, but it's close respawns, and they've at least got some progress going with this car.
Yeah. I will say also that you can see WCU Slate being they label their rosters a ton of flex players, and we're already seeing that come into effect here in map number 2 as some role switches through. But that being said, there's that amplification matrix used all the way forward. Trash Boat's eyeing a shatter here.
Yeah, keeping a sharp eye on Spongy Boy. Looping back around to meet him. Here comes the nano boost in. Bo swinging, just looking to take down Spongy Boy and immediately throw down the shatter. Spongy Boy backing up. Sound barrier's there. The pin all the way into the back. It's not going to be able to kill Trash Boat, and Trash Boat has an immortality field. Wins out that duel. Still has yet to pull the trigger on the shatter. Big advantage from main tanks for the defense of Huntington Esports. Boo in the back is super low, but Ginger Falls, who's been a huge source of damage here for Huntington. Now Trash Boat going back up front, still looking for somewhere to throw down this hammer, but his supercharger's keeping him at bay for the meantime.
At this point, I just want to see the shatter used. Come on!
Spongy Boy was out of the fight forever, and still the Earth Shatter in the pocket of Trash Boat. Now we're back to those Rhine mental games we were talking about earlier.
The only mental game that's being affected is mine, as they refuse to use it, but there's that in the backline.
The quick rotate around, being wary of the shatter, but it's a double kill from the remake, and Spongy Boy puts the hammer down first. Got several with him, but cannot find any follow-up. His T-Brain had already flattened two with that remake kill.
Oh man, the opening of the fight was the self-destruct, but it was actually the remake that gets a couple of kills. And all right. Listen, Reinhardt. If you have a shatter, use it. Let's go. Anyway, we'll give you one Ryan with a shatter in this next fight. And actually, we're going to see Jay Rizzle switch over to the Zarya here now. So a little bit more brawl potential by WCU Slate's front line. And keep an eye on this Dragon Blade, who looking to come up big with this Genji.
The nano boost onto the right heart first. And finally, the hammer is thrown down. It is onto Jay Rizzle and Jay Rizzle alone, who did not last long at all. Neither did that fight.
You know what? We'll rate that one like a 3 out of 10 for Shatter style points, only because not the mechanics from Trash But were fine, but everyone was already dead by the time the Q button was pressed, so it's a little tough place to be in there. Again, through no fault of their own.
Well, good news is Spongy Boy's not very close to one of their own. Boo's still holding on to this Dragon Blade, though. A little pin, counter pin up front. Sleep on the Spongy Boy means their death subsequently thereafter. Boo finally pulls the katana out of its sheath, headed into the back. I heard a Deadeye go off and disagree. Was the victim of that one. MWM able to finish off one while Boo was cleaning up the supports. And WCU Slate with their best look yet so far after getting out of the front door, but still have a couple of tanks to work through. There's still a lot of work for them to do if they want to complete point A, and they're running out of time.
That was a spectacular tank play from T-Brain. They might actually save the round here for Huntington Esports. There's that self-destruct in the back line, and that's good for another one there. As another remake kill comes in.
Oh my, I don't believe it. T-Brain with 3 remat kills on this defense. A WCU Slate with 0 points picked up. Oh my goodness. Oh. T-Brain, MVP of Havana so far, no doubt.
Between Doxic and T-Brain, right? This is a coin flip as to who's been the better player on this map, but T-Brain has really stepped up in a big way. That last fight actually was very critical. T-Brain not only uses the presence of the Diva, right? Just the sheer HP of the mech to kind of absorb some of the damage of the tactical visor, but then uses the rest of the Matrix to shut down whatever remnant of damage comes through, and then gets the elimination on top of it, coupled with a remake kill. I mean, T-Brain has done it all here on this defense, and as a result, Huntington Esports now standing away maybe 3 fights at most from taking a 2-0 series lead here in the semifinals.
WCU Slate coming back with the double main tank look to try to prevent that from happening. I don't know about the Reinhardt and the Orisa duo. It's always something I see it work and I go, how did that work?
I mean,
a lot of shielding and not a lot of utility, right? Like you don't have a lot.
Tough to run over.
Support.
It's really a presence comp, right? So if you stand up and just hold the front line, and say you're not going past this place, it can work. It requires a level of mental fortitude to accept that teams are going to try and run at you, and that you just need to survive. But we'll see if WCU Slate can bring it through. And I mean, credit to them, they have to play that sort of aggressive style now. Again, they don't really have a choice. What with the golden box of victory being not much further forward than about 3/4 of the way through this first point.
And with Western Colorado sitting up on the high ground underneath the arches, I mean, this is a 2, if not a 1 fight scenario for Huntington Esports. Because WCU Slate, judged by the position, are going to choose to back off. Unless they drop down and just get aggressive right here and now. I do see the Reinhardt pushing into the battle. With Soldier keeping tabs on the high ground. It's just a Lucio and a Rhino. They're trying to speed in. Finally, Jay Rizzo comes to join the party, and the rest of the team shows up, knowing that this is an important fight that WCU Slate must win.
Still, a lot of damage being put down by Boo here on the Soldier, and they actually get T-Brain out of mech, so the hit scan now become a lot more deadly. As Trashboat just trying to stay alive here.
Trashboat was trying to use some cover, unsuccessfully though. Attack visor there to support the fact, the Reinhardt's gone down. T-Brain back in mech, looking to interfere with that, but still can't quite get in front of the Rockets enough. Now a Deadeye from the back line, trying to devalue the amplification matrix coming out from Michael. Jay Rizzle has returned to this fight, and this cart stalled out a little bit. Nice kill on to Michael. Trashboat under a lot of pressure as well. Good halt into the back, and Boo continues to terrorize whoever sticks their nose out from behind these shields.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a reset now for Huntington Esports, but I think this is one of those rare fights where both teams walk away from it thinking that they got the better end of it. In Huntington's Esports' favor, they got all those ultimates away from WCU Slate. They forced them off the composition they were opening with, something that's a little less cohesive in its neutral game. And then for WCU Slate, they wasted half the time bank, and the cart is now in a defensive position. So as Prozac walks in, keep an eye out on the Shatter. How many times have I said that so far? But I think this time it really is going to be the difference maker.
Oh, but Trash Boat takes so much damage. It's T-Brain there once again to bail out the main tank, find that kill, and protect the Reinhardt so the heals can come through. And with 2 kills coming from Prozac, Deadeye, Death Blossom on top of it, Huntington Esports are going to sail clear as day into the sunset, well, and at least into a 2-0 lead here over WCU Slate.
That is...
We heard the shatter come out of this.
Oh... A lot of fantastic defense, and then subsequently an offense from Huntington Esports there in those final moments. Ginger going to get the highlight here at the tail end of the game, but I think T-Brain really was the MVP of map number 2 of Havana, and we'll see if WCU Slate can have a response in our third map, because they are awful close. Remember, this is a first to 4, and so halfway there are Huntington Esports at this point.
I think that's good and bad news for Western Colorado. You're not staring on the barrel of match point. You still have a little bit of wiggle room. It also means you've got to win 4 of the next, 5 maps to really bring this thing back. Possibly 6, I guess, if we get a draw. But, well, I think we're going to take a little intermission before we head into map number 3. When we come back, we're headed to a hybrid map, and it will be WCU's pick. We'll see you back here with more of our semifinals here in just a few. Huntington University up 2-0 over WCU Slate here in our Navigators Division semifinal matchup for NECC Overwatch Nationals. Jeff and LaFawn returning with you from map number 3, and WCU Slate have chosen Hollywood to set the stage, try to bring this thing back.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can claw it back from the brink, or it will be if they end up losing this map, right? Again, this a win here
Truly
would put Huntington at match point. And another thing to quickly highlight, of course, is the flexibility with which WCU Slate has been approaching the roster and sort of the role selection as well, as flex has been the primary option for this entire squad, right? No real set roles here for the most part.
No, 9 players of the squad listed as flex players, and Disagree, the captain of WCU, putting that on full display as they're going to move into the tank role here for map number 3. We'll have Jay Rizzle moving back into the support role, which they played in the first map. But for Disagree, this is the 3rd separate role. They have now officially played DPS support and tank in 3 maps here for Western Colorado.
It's going to be, I think the one thing, of course, to kind of highlight with that is that there's something to be said for not having standard roles and like your calls not being particularly consistent, right? Obviously with different players, there's different tempos, players react in different ways, no matter, even if you're used to playing with a player, putting them on a different role can change things up dramatically. So that is somewhat of a downside. The upside is your opponent is suffering from the same thing, right? And in as much as Huntington has seen what WCU have been playing all the way through, it is going to be a different approach here by virtue of it being a different player in a different slot, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind on this 3rd map, as it is going to be Hollywood. And I think, Jeff, something we've kind of seen here is that WC has been no stranger to fights. They've kind of struggled to close out those impact ones, right? The ones that'll give them that first point capture or flipping the point back in their favor. Those have really been, I think, the difference makers for WC Slate. That Huntington Esports has just had the more clutch factor, and I'd like to see WC Slate step up here in map number 3.
Well, we've already seen one change here already, as Huntington Esports are bringing up double shield. Western Colorado are showing us some of the dive tanks, though they still have plenty of time to change their mind on that. But nevertheless, it's a bit departure from the massive amount of Reinhardt we saw on maps 1 and 2.
Yeah. In fact, we're seeing 2 disparate styles for the first time all series, right? Not only is it a step away from the Reinhardt, but WC Slate being that high mobility composition, Huntington, a very static, high ground based, just stand still and hold a choke point. So, for the first time, we're seeing what a rock versus paper might look like, as opposed to the one versus the other that happened in the first 2 maps.
Yeah, it was just banging 2 rocks together. See which one would crack first. Spongy Boy looking to go crack open this defense with a very aggressive dive. Immortality Field nicely placed up there. Allows Spongy Boy to find an early pick, but Jay Rizzle falls in the process. So unless Beast Mode can find this res, which would be very good here for WCU Slate, they do get it off. That is huge. The Baptiste is back, and WCU are on top again in this fight. Ginger moving in the back, finds Boo. Was burning down Spongy Boy, and then just Spongy Boy left out of the way, and there was a lone Genji there to eat all that damage, and it's an early photon barrier. As a result, Ginger finds the kill onto the Mercy as well.
Ginger doing a great job of upscaling the beam on the barrier from Spongy Boy, right? And unfortunately, in the namesake's sense, Spongy Boy being a damaged sponge there in that fight just gives over Ginger a ton of resources who, now has to build up to a second ultimate before many players on both squads even approach their first.
Boo barely halfway to 1. And Ginger's already gotten 1 out. Do have a Valk and potentially attack Visor here on attempt number 2 as WCU Slate go back to the high ground. There's that Primal Rage, another important one available as Spongy Boy is going to last a lot longer up there with an additional 1,000 health, trying to chase down Michael in the back. Can't quite find that small opening to the high ground of Cafe. Meanwhile, Ginger continues to melt the squad. Ginger has been an absolute pain here for W Slate to try to deal with it. Ginger's got a second lease on life. They get rezzed up. They're right back into this thing. And their DPS duel and Prozac finishes off Spongy Boy.
And on top of that, Doxic actually stays alive as well. So down to a handful of HP points, but they're back in control. And Huntington aren't even going to allow this Diva to get out with their mech. Ooh, no. Disagree barely surviving.
There's about 50 health there left for Disagree, maybe less. The bunker comp holding up so far really well. And Huntington have a bevy of a war chest to work with. They do give up this high ground, so MDM happy to take it. Drop the tack visor. Look, there's 3 shields in the way. The tack visor can't get anything done. Prozac has one of their own and an amplification matrix to shoot it through. That means an easy double kill here for the defense, and Prozac sends WCU Slate packing.
Here we go again, says MWM as he grabs the corner and sees, as we said, 3 shields. So, not much the soldier can do there. And I mean, even in this case, T-Brain not likely to go down, and it's going to be the reset for WCU Slate yet again. As we're now down to the last minute of play here on the Hollywood's attack side for WCU Slate. And it's going to have to be a Blade that comes up clutch here in this final fight, but look at all the damage it has to deal with. This Gravitic Flux, the Supercharger, and of course the Valkyrie to just keep everyone healthy. And I mean, Boo, I do not envy you in this fight. Not at all.
It's gonna be a tough one. You see Boo trying to work away the high ground, and here comes the Blade. We're gonna be able to chop through the Supercharger. It gets both supports at the same time. That is as big a Blade as you could have possibly asked for coming out of Boo. Now it is up to the rest of Western Colorado to make good on it and not let the Genji player down. Spongy Boys back on their feet, and 2 ticks picked up here for WCU.
And I said I'd not envy the Genji player, and Boo proved just how much better of a showcase that could be. It's going to be the point actually taken over now in the final hour, 15 seconds. Michael's going to get one. They're actually trying to commit to this fight.
Oh no, Trash Boat just gets killed immediately. Barely made it off the ground before plummeting right back to the earth. And WCU Slate get some extra ult charge out of those commitments from Huntington.
It's gonna. We're seeing the change in composition come through. Trash Boat's going to go over to the Reinhardt here. So perhaps it was a case of just the play was called to switch, and they just wanted a chance at maybe using the ultimate rather than wasting it. And if that's the case, okay, I can see that going. Now it's going to be that rush versus rush that we've seen in the previous maps, but no speed here for either team, so a very slow rush composition, all things told.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a battle for high ground and just holding position more than taking it. Really just a battle for cart here as both of our Reinhardts go shield to shield, but that's a fire strike through an Ant Matrix. I think that... Well, either way, it was a kill from Boo on to Doxic. I thought it might have been a deflect on that for a split second, but hey, that's beside the point. Tack visor from the high ground is exactly the point, though. Going to find a target on the objective, and that's Michael, the Baptiste, and with it, the Immortality Field out of the fight. Photon Barrier protecting the Symmetra in the Reinhardt for now, but still a huge positional play here from WCU Slate.
That being said, not a lot of ground gain, and Boom actually need to use this Blade, not even though the fight has been won. Doxic still gets out. No damage done.
Oh, how does she survive that? What elusive movement. That was incredible. Just a little shimmy there to avoid the stars coming out from Boo. The Shurikens more specifically. Deadeye from the high ground coming out of Prozac's. Going to take down Beast Mode immediately. Good high priority pick. Finds 2. That's most supports. Fall into that attack visor. Self-destruct will eventually finish them off, but WCU Slate now have nothing to really work with. 2 quick kills from the tanks, but without the sustain, the longer this fight goes on, the less likely WCU are to win it.
Actually, Disagree gets a rematch kill too halfway through all that, all those shenanigans. It still comes out with an elimination. Unfortunately, not one that's going to mean much in the grand scheme of things, as Ginger will take the high ground, actually take a ton of damage to Boo and Jay Rizzle. But with 27 seconds remaining here, WCU Slate need an explosive fight to take the second point.
Yeah, this is their last opportunity. They've got Shatter and the Blade to work with. It's going to be Boo pulling the trigger on that first. Going to the back line, but Doxic again, just so incredibly elusive. And Boo falls to a remake. The Shatter will find both DPS. It's not a whole lot before the back of it. Trash Boat throwing down a better one. Reinhardt's finding kills on both sides. Trash Boat will take down Spongy Boy in that head-to-head matchup. Rez on to T-Brain to get the Diva back into this fight. Disagree's going to get demeched, and with the Ant Matrix there, this is certainly a hold. Huntington Esports will allow 1 point to get picked up, but not 2.
Still a good round, I think, by WCU Slate, especially considering how poorly the first point went for them, right? They were kind of locked out in the cold. And still were able to claw back a second point, well, at least halfway through this second point for themselves now as they try and head to the defense again. Huntington able to recover, though. The high ground control by Huntington Esports was just a little bit more effective, and I credit to Doxic again. That one play dancing away from the Genji, from Boo, avoiding the shurikens, as you said, was a difference maker, because it meant the tactical advisor now had a pocket with that blue beam, with that damage amplification from the high ground, right? And that damage throughput was just a lot more critical for Huntington Esports. And on top of that, just avoiding the Diva. So WCU Slate now back to the drawing board as they get set for what could be the most important defense for the remainder of this map.
Our observer is a ghost. Maybe a vampire. No reflection. All right, anyway, sorry.
That imagine like observers in the game are just like little bats because they're vampires, but like if they show up in the air.
Yes!
That would be terrific. You just could see like them fluttering around. Oh my.
Yes, yeah, like little drones almost, but bats are cooler.
Liz, I'm begging. Please put this in the game. Please let the observers be.
$1 million idea right here, Blizz. Come on.
Speaking of,
it's
going to be
on the defense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, a really close course brawl from WCU Slate. Actually, as they bring Boo on the Reaper. So what is traditionally a stall composition, trying to play up close and personal here.
With an Orisa, which is an interesting wrinkle on that, but a nice teleporter behind this whole thing is going to keep Spongy Boy on their toes. In fact, just put Spongy Boy back into spawn. MWM on the high ground, dueling out with Prozac. Prozac's landed one, but takes a bunch of damage. The heal station perfect from MWM. Even gets an immortality field out. But back on the low ground, they've lost their Baptista as well as that Reaper. And MWM suddenly finding themselves overwhelmed on point A.
T-Brain has really, really good understanding of how to keep mech, by the way. Down several times to less than 20 HP and yet does not get demeched. And I mean, credit to the supports, of course, for keeping the off-tank player alive, but knowing when to retreat is a big part of that, and T-Brain has come up clutch in a big way. Now 5.5 minutes on the clock as they look to head through second, and Huntington Esports trying to take a firm control of this series. And it's going to be the low ground contest here from WCU Slate as they go over to the Reinhardt Diva for a near mirror composition. This one I think favors a little bit better, especially with that Reaper.
That Reaper was chasing down Prozac, looking to punish T-Brain. Opts to back out of that one. Still moving in from this flank angle, trying to turn the eyes while MWM heads to the high ground. This does leave Spongy Boy at a slight disadvantage down on the point if Prozac and Ginger want to focus down the Reinhardt. Especially with an Amp Matrix and double damage there. MWM looking to counter back from the other side, but Soundbarrier out from Doxic, and MWM can't get anything done. T-Brain once again a big hero on this Diva. Trash Boat trying to push forward. Some swings back and forth between our two Reinhardts, but it's that beam from Ginger. That is going to be the tilting balance. Trash Boat coming up with two final blows in quick succession. And Huntington Esports have the box of victory in their sights.
T-Brain, another clutch play there, by the way. Booping the soldier off the high ground, and then yet again, getting the final blow onto the ultimate. The only ultimate the WCU Slate had in their bank. I mean, now just no one left to contest as they go to the spawn doors. It's going to roll in slowly but surely.
Yep.
And Huntington Esports will head to match point here in our semifinals.
This new squad here at NECC looked unstoppable throughout the regular season, looked unstoppable in our spring playoffs, and have not slowed in the slightest here in Nationals, and are one map away from punching their ticket to the grand finals.
Ginger gets another highlight, by the way, on the Symmetra, the high power beam. It's one you got to pay attention to, right? There's a reason Symmetra has a little fun anecdote, has the highest win rate on the Overwatch 2 beta of all characters. So there's a little fun anecdote. Yeah, obviously this is Overwatch 1, but I think it just goes to show how strong the character is sneakily, and Ginger showing it to great effect there in that final map, or the third map, not final. We do have at least one more to go, and this brings up an interesting point, Jeff, because to wit, the players and teams have not yet played a best of 7 in the regular season, and so there is an element of fatigue that we have to talk about a little bit coming in. And Huntington Esports, sure, they're on match point, but if you let your foot off the gas pedal, the opposition will come back to get you, and that is really what Huntington has to be worried about coming into map number 4.
And a fun fact, Western Colorado, they're all playing, well, 5 of the 6 players are playing out of their facility, out of their arena there in Gunnison, Colorado. So, I mean, I couldn't think of a better way to rally, a better way to, you look your teammates in the eye and just say, we've got this. Like, put that behind you, keep the mental strong, and keep pressing forward. We're going to outlast them. They're all there together. Now's the time. Well, it is. You have no looking back. You have no more second chances. It has to be nothing from dubs here from Western Colorado throughout the rest of this series and throughout the rest of Nationals, frankly.
That is how it goes, right? Elimination, it stares us all. The heels are on the edge of the cliff for WCU Slate. Can they make the comeback happen? That's what we have to find out as we head into map number 4 in a moment.
Map number 4 will be an escort map type, so we are heading back to that. That means that both Junkertown and Havana are no longer in the map pool. So both the map that got banned in map 2 and the map that got played, clearly, not available. So it starts to kind of narrow your choices. And I feel the strategic advantage kind of starts to shrink with that as well.
Well, I can narrow it just a little bit further for you here at this point. Gibraltar gets banned out. It is going to be Route 66, where we head to next for our escort point. And to just kind of build on that point of strategic setup, I fully agree, right? We're not going to see maps play differently or stylistically differently depending where you go, right? Havana does not play the same as Route 66 does not play the same as Rialto. In this sense, we got to talk about Route 66. Definitely the, rush composition can stand out, but we have seen Dive played in the series at this point, and I mean, Dive also quite strong on Route 66.
Absolutely, and I mean, my poor Watchpoint Gibraltar just never gets played. It just gets banned out every time.
Yeah.
Speaking of dive maps, but no, Route 66 is a good dive map as well. Route 66 actually, I think, has a lot of room for creativity. There's enough unique approaches. I mean, I think the most consistent thing of Route 66 is your defense holds on top of big Earls. That's probably the most consistent factor of this whole thing. But other than that, I think there is a lot of room to play. I mean, I'm thinking back to, so like Contenders EU, where we started the teleport strategies with the Orisa come into play, and everybody started copying that with the Symmetra and an Orisa to bounce back and forth. I think it's a unique map design in that it kind of takes the best of what we love about the Overwatch maps, and then has just these little edges that make it feel different. The cave entrance that you're looking at on your screen right now onto point B, to try to open that up and create another route of entry here. I don't know. I like Route 66 as well.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that the point about creativity with its Symmetra teleport, we don't even have to look that far. It's happened a ton in this series already, right? I mean, Ginger has been an absolute menace with the turrets and the beam. But a big part of that's a teleporter, getting past the front lines of the opponent and then kind of, approaching their back or shooting them from the back as a result. So, I mean, credit to Huntington for isolating those moments where just the defensive capabilities are not there for WCU Slate, and has been a big part of why they're up 3-0 in the series.
We are going to get a few more swaps coming in, not in players, but just in roles. As MWM is heading back to the tank role, which they were playing back in map number 1, coming off of DPS. That means Jay Rizzle is headed to DPS, who has yet to play DPS for this team, has played support and tank so far today, looking to make their debut in the DPS role. And then we're going to just have to disagree to support again, which, jokes.
There's so many.
I know. I just kind of let that one settle in.
There's so many
just let that one settle in
for a moment. There that WCU Slate. I'll spare you today. That being said, Huntington Esports on the defense here. They'll look to try and stymie the offense once and for all. This map could be the last of the series, as Huntington Esports looking for that shutout in the scoreline. Now, I mean, this is a very curious look. I mean, we'll take a quick gander of the offense. WCU Slate has been, more committed to their early picks than we can often, see from teams in the offensive spawn. But certainly, I would describe this as not a lot of synchronicity, but definitely a lot of explosive potential for WCU Slate. I mean, the hook, obviously the headshot from Boo. Perhaps we'll scout for an elimination and then maybe go back, but at least early on, looking for those one-shot wonders for the damage throughput for WCU Slate.
Turn back to the defense just momentarily. T-Brain has moved into the main tank role, who's been such a star in the off-tank role all series. It's Trash Boat, who you're seeing in the kill feed. Pardon me, a little bit of a frog in my throat there. But going over to that off-tank in the Sigma, finding first blood and taking the tip of the spear off the hook. Now we're going to get double off-tank coming out of WCU Slate.
Oh, that is...
Ginger overextends a little bit. Yeah, it gets melted down in that cave.
Well, I'd have to disagree. It actually gets frozen. But in that point, the elimination is still the same. As Huntington Esports now down 2. Big headshot comes in from Boo. And that's WCU Slate's win condition online. They've made the card move forward quite a bit.
Oh! That was a nasty little hook. Okay. I couldn't quite get the finish on that, courtesy of a great immortality field from Michael. But the 2 picks that came through have been 2 names that we've been calling out all day long. That was Ginger and Doxic out of this fight early, and WCU Slate have bought a lot of space. Now, they've lost 2 along the way, and still have Ginger deal with, who has returned on a Reaper. Just made short work of Spongy Boy's mech. Nice Bionade to finish it off. And despite it looking so good at the start, WCU again can't finish. They can't clutch it out, LaFawn.
I mean, we've talked about Ginger and Doxic all day indeed, but Prozac has stepped up in a big way as well. And there, the Soldier actually comes in with 3 final blows, a couple of Helix Rocket eliminations on top of it all. And Huntington Esports now arguably in a better position than they were before. J-Rizzle does have the Blizzard, but you have to get the high ground to use it. That is a really tall order. Meanwhile, Huntington Esports coming up with a ton of resource in this next fight.
A great Bionate is going to force out an early immortality field, which means there's going to be nothing to protect against all these resources from Huntington, but nice focus fire on it. T-Brain goes down. And Matrix combined with a attack visor from the high ground. Not really getting much purchase. Good job from Spongy Boy to block a lot of that. Blizzard self-destruct coming out on the point. Bionate down, finds 2. Beast Mode is in trouble. Beast Mode's going to fall. Disagree. The only support left standing here for WCU Slate has a sound barrier if they need it. Huntington Esports are looking very low. Michael tried to top everybody off, but there's a diva in their face. And Spongy Boy will eventually find that pick, and WCU should eventually pick up point A. There it is.
Nice little cleanup there from Spongy Boy, just making sure to tank a ton of presence, and the damage throughput is there. A little aside there is Michael actually gets, or ex-Michael I should say, gets the Nano Boost supply. Baptiste can't make a ton of damage through with it, but the survivability was there. Unfortunately, WCU Slate just ignore the Baptiste and to take out the remaining members. Really well played by them. Now a double off-tank look from a WCU Slate. They'll look to try and pressure a ton of presence here at the high ground. 2 roaming bruisers is what WCU Slate are kind of playing around here.
Ginger taking a lot of damage early, and Spongy Boy just gets right in their face. That was a 1v4 momentarily on that high ground. Spongy Boy fearless and knowing when to back out. Ginger, Death Blossom coming into the back. Finds bow supports immediately. Disagree, cannot get that sound barrier out fast enough. Was fortunate they didn't try to pull the trigger on it. Might have lost it. As Ginger just death from above ends that fight quickly.
Things you love to see there. Not often you see the Death Blossom get a ton of value, but a well-timed execution of that ultimate. Again, as you said, just catches both supports unaware. And this diva, you know, Spongy Boy had to face tank a ton of damage up top. No Matrix in play. And the hook was just a wide a little bit. So WCU Slate back to the drawing board. Near 6 ultimates for them. It's going to be down to execution here as they try and watch the point. But they have to walk from low to high. Huntington Esports still control the vertical presence on this map.
Somehow Trash Boat ends up down low. Got hooked. Tried to back out of there. There's a nano boost onto Ginger going in. J-Rizzle tried to freeze him up, tried to focus him down, but cannot. Ginger still gets the kill. T-Brain puts enough pressure on J-Rizzle to knock him off of the Reaper. Eventually falls in their own right. Spongy Boy's going to use a self-destruct to try to get back in mech here, but overwhelming odds favoring Huntington Esports. 2 minutes on the clock.
The other thing, too, is Trash Boat actually gets the elimination right as J-Rizzle uses the Blizzard, and that means it was actually denied in its entirety. So no value there. That's 3 ultimates for nothing for WCU Slate. Now it's 3 to try and get this remaining fight going. 1:45 left on the clock here. Huntington Esports in a great position.
Boo does find an entry pick. Falls. During Death Blossom, though, Death Blossom picks up a pair. Hook in from the outside. NWM able to find some revenge. Still got Prozac on the back, but they're a lone Cassie, a lone gunman, if you would, facing the entirety of WCU Slate at the moment.
There is still potential for respawns to come in. So J-Rizzle holding the high ground very, very smartly here. Yeah, don't allow them to walk through. And that's going to mean the cart will roll to that checkpoint. And I believe Doxic is caught out on the low ground, but it's Prozac who takes 1 with them instead. So Huntington Esports will actually get a true 5v5 fight here on this early point and not really lose any ground at all.
Nice May wall. T-Brain scrambles to get back. Immortality field out from the defense. T-Brain does have the supercharger ready to go. Just kind of throws it down in the middle of the street to try to win this fight here. Alt in. Spongy Boy takes a little bit of damage. Oh, Jay Rizzle takes shots right to the dome. A lot of follow-up with that supercharger, and beautifully done. Huntington Esports are going to win out this fight and stabilize 0-point state.
I mean, that's the strength of the supercharger, right? You're like, oh, there's not a lot of damage, and oh my goodness, my HP is gone. And that happens to two members of WCU Slate as T-Brain just walks forward. And, I mean, now Huntington Esports still in a fantastic position, right? Like, Gravitic Flux available, Death Blossom on blind again, and they get the D-Mech onto Spongy Boy and the elimination on top of that. This fight's over.
I mean, it means Ginger can just throw down this Death Blossom at will. Coming in from the high ground, looking for it. Immortality Field has already been used as well. There is nothing to block. This may not even be necessary. Oh, yeah. Nice hold. Good finish as well. This Ginger and Prozac combined, just so much damage. Even without a supercharger, these two damage output is just through the roof at the moment.
Presence for Huntington Esports is spectacular, by the way, Jeff, as they just continue to just run down whatever opponents think they can, come out of spawn. And with that aggression, it means the WCU Slate is being forced to regroup time and time again without actually ever taking a true fight. And that means no ultimates have actually been used. There's the Amplification Matrix. That's the first fight, or the first ult being used in 2 fights for Huntington Esports.
As a result, I mean, it feels like WCU Slate haven't had a chance to use theirs. It's not out of any great discipline, just so much as the fact that they're just getting stifled. Absolutely choked off, suffocated. Ooh, with a good opening pick. They gotta do something with this. The sound barrier is out. They need to find value with this now. Ginger is gonna Wraith Walk out of the way of that whole hog, hooking on to Trash Boat. Puts the Accretion Rock down to buy some space. Supercharger now in as Huntington used one of their first ults, and another one combined with it is the Death Blossom. That's going to find a pair. Boo has snuck around back, though, and Western Colorado have clawed their way back into this fight. It's down to the wire. T-Brain and Ginger are still standing.
That is the brawl potential of the Reaper and the Orisa. And now we're in that last fight, 15 seconds left. WC Slate have to walk back. Jay Rizzle will have the Blizzard, but they need to stay alive, and the Cryofees has been used already.
Blizzard is out. I only see the May here, though. Nice retreat. Somehow Ginger is the one that gets caught in that, the one character that can Wraith form out of it. But there's not enough reinforcements. It was preempted from Jay Rizzle. Let's get a touch here, and overtime has started, but this is now a desperate situation, particularly with the Baptiste gone from WCU Slate. Ginger is just right on the heels of their Orisa, riding that Battle Cattle all the way to victory, at least to a good hold here on Point C.
Still a fantastic and a valiant effort from WCU Slate, Jeff, as they actually get to that third phase where it looked for a moment like they might get held at 1 and then held at 2, and they make sure to make their way through. So it's not over for them yet. Defense is still there's still a lot of potential for it as they get set for their half. But Huntington Esports still in a fantastic position. All they do is got to get to third point, and all of a sudden the series might just end.
I mean, I will say Western Colorado have definitely kept Huntington on their toes here in Route 66. Be it the swap-ups that we were talking about earlier, where you don't get the same look, I mean, different compositions, and coming in with this unusual double off-tank with the Diva and the Roadhog. It's definitely forced Huntington to keep their heads on a swivel as far as, well, maybe you can keep their brains on a swivel, might be a better way to say that, to really adapt to these various looks. I mean, the May was getting some good value from Western Colorado as well. It's a good showing, like you said. It's a good showing. They're not out of this yet. They can absolutely put up a good defense here and send us to that map 5.
And I really like what I'm seeing from them actually on their defense here too. High ground defense, right? They're holding up big girls as we kind of highlighted at the start of Route 66, but they're also playing a composition that makes a ton of sense for Route 66, right? The Roadhog, sure, but they're playing the Orisa, right? A lot of stability here. Shield, which you can't just run through. And then Jay Rizzle, who's being sort of a force on May, will reprise their role here as they set to kind of slow down the game. Just, ice out the opposition, if you will. Literally, in this case.
Snow cones for everybody. WCU has their way. Ginger back onto this Reaper. A powerhouse for Huntington all day long. And Huntington want to play this fast. They want to close this gap as quickly as possible. At least play underneath and perhaps wait for Western Colorado to drop down. A hook there onto Ginger. Good peel from T-Brain, able to go in and find the defense matrix. Keep Ginger alive, but Jay Rizzle follows up. Good focus fire out of WCU Slate will grant them first kill. Unfortunately for them, MWM is in a bad position, caught behind enemy lines. does fall, but a couple of quick picks going the other way, and WCU still have the advantage.
T-Brain has been big on that peel department here, and that off-tank is really... It's been a battle of the off-tank so far in this first point, while the duels have kind of stepped through. Blizzard nearly online for J Rizzle, but the spawns are not favoring WCU Slate. Let's try to go for the freeze, but instead is the one forced to freeze.
I think the boop actually saved J Rizzle there. Kind of got booped back behind their own Orisa shield. Blizzard does come out, but sound barrier is there from Doxic. Once again, she's the hero of Huntington Esports. Trash Boat still gets focused down, but there's a lot of fight left in this squad. Sound barrier in, doesn't save Disagree. It was a touch early to prevent the max damage. And Ginger's going to melt one. Prozac's going to find two with the Deadeye from up high. And now you just have MWM caught in a tunnel.
That's actually T-Brain getting another big plays that goes to the self-destruct, which gets that kill as you highlighted, but then also smartly uses the remech right on the supercharger to deny value there as well. And the eliminations come in from onto WCU Slate, and that's going to be the point captured here for Huntington Esports. Not without difficulties, certainly, but certainly not, what WCU Slate would have liked. Spongy Boy will make a return to the Reinhardt shield tank in play. But resources are no longer available, and WCU Slate have to make magic happen with this Matrix and a whole hog.
Using the remake to take out the supercharger, that is a big brain play. That's what we just come to expect from T-Brain all day long.
Living up to the name, certainly. Keep an eye on Ginger, of course.
Yeah, I love it.
Keep an eye on Ginger. Death Blossom's there. You can see already looking for that play. Staying, kind of just holding post.
It manages to take MWM out a whole hog. Of course, that's when the Roadhog is at their most vulnerable. Beast mode with an immortality field out early, and it's not going to save their main tank. It was too far back. They had to protect the supports. They're under so much pressure. There's just nothing the supports can do here from WCU.
Oh, and Ginger controls the high ground here. There's that play. They're going to try and get Lucy up, and they will. Dodges the flashbang too, or rather gets hit by it, but it's ultimately ineffective. As in the final moments of WCU Slate, how Force trying to walk out. All the bubbles being used. They have to just kind of hide from the self-destruct.
But I mean, it's enough to prevent the contest? Maybe. Okay, 1.64 when they come into touch, but T-Brain already found first pick. Trash Boat going, pin it into the back, finds something with that. Isn't going down. I think it hit the Baptiste, the immortality field was up. Nevertheless, it's going to be 2 DPS ults here to close it out. Feels almost unnecessary there from Ginger, but hey, you dance away. You dance away, Ginger.
The edgelord version of a celebratory performance. Now 4.5 minutes, and they only have to get halfway through third. And WCU Slate, this is the easiest point to defend, certainly on this map. There's also no more mistakes that can be made. Again, this is match point. A victory here will end the series. T-Brain takes a ton of damage.
And that box of victory is so close. I mean, this is a one-fight scenario and over 4 minutes on the clock. Trash Boat with a shatter, inching forward, looking for it. Back up, Ant Matrix from the defense. Deadeye coming out from Boo in the far back will just force Huntington Esports duck and hide for a moment.
Prozac playing peekaboo with the Cassidy. They exchange flashbangs, but it's Boo. Quicker on the draw. As the headshot will come in. And WC Slate now ahead in this fight.
That was a true Wild West draw. Oh, what a shatter coming down. Disagree. He's going to back it up with a sound barrier, and everybody from Western Colorado can get aggressive. The Mountaineers have won this fight, but they still got more to do.
That's the shatter. That's the absolute best shatter, is the one where you shatter the shield and it still knocks everybody down. Trash Boat didn't have a lot of HP left in the barrier, and so that goes through. WC Slate now kind of returning to form. Graviton Surge available. Blizzard will be able to combo with it. And that is a fight that they could end. All eyes on T-Brain. Been big so far. They'll need to deny 2 here with the Matrix.
Blizzard is in, and it makes it out, as does the Graviton Surge. Both get around T-Brain, and the kills are on the back of it. Even Doxic Sound Barrier is not enough for Huntington Esports, and WCU win another one.
It's good. It's a good cycle there. It means that Spongy Boy also can bring back their ultimate. As the Earthshatter comes back in the bank, if you will. Not much else available. Beast Mode's not quite to the Ant Matrix yet. It's really going to be a duel of the Ryans. We started off the map with it. We'll have to see if they can end it as well. Shatter's at the ready.
Started off the series with it. Oh, looking for the turnaround. Don't even need it. They were looking for the combo with the self-destruct, but Trash Boat just hammers it down. And now is the only Reinhardt on the battlefield. Bubbles are used. It's going to be a free shatter coming down onto 3. The Deadeye cleans him up. Huntington Esports with a clean fight win. Question is, can WCU even touch her?
There is a recontest available. You can see the Diva coming in from WM. Somebody's going to get to fight, but it's Vu down early, and no one. The counter pin is there. Spongy Boy will not make it in time.
No!
And that cart will roll through. Huntington will take the victory as they close the 4-0 series here in the semifinals.
Oh my! What a way for Huntington Esports to end out day 2. This team made a massive splash entering NECC this season, and now they are moving on to the grand finals. Our first team to qualify for the grand finals here in the Navigators division. And I mean, that combo, that was a little snippet of the coordination that we saw from Huntington University all day long. It was something to behold. It was a joy to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, on the flip side, though, no shade, no shame at all for WCU Slate, who performed as, they played their hearts out. They really, really did. Some very, very bright moments from them. Excited to see that squad continue because, again, a very young squad, and to make it here to the semifinals, just overall a really, really, heartfelt performance by WCU Slate.
I agree. And I hate to say goodbye to any of our teams, but this one, I don't know. This one feels particularly sad for some reason. I don't know. You see the amount of love. You see the blood, sweat, and tears that these teams pour into it. But hey, you know what? Making it this far is certainly nothing to hang your head about. Definitely have a lot to be proud of there from our team out of Gunnison, Colorado.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? It's the winner's day. It's a victory going over to Huntington, and I think we're going to get a chance to talk to one of them. Again, we're going to take a quick intermission, figure out something for a winner's interview. I can't wait to get some insight on what we just saw. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. We'll be back with our winner's interview momentarily.